Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Roleplay Central. Today, we're going to be doing just sort of a reaction video. It's just me and Tyler today. John couldn't make it, but we're going to react to the new monster manual and then talk about the Artificer a little bit. The new Artificer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, without further ado, I guess we'll just get into it.
We have the new core rule books, and this is the final of the new core rule books. It's the monster manual. Was my gateway into D&D as a kid, looking through the monsters, absorbing all this information over time. So tell me what's new in the new monster manual.
Everything is new in some way,
right?
Because when the two of us embarked on reimagining this book of beasties, and I think it's true for the two of us that like monster books are our favorite D&D books.
Oh, absolutely, no question.
Yeah, and so working on any monster book is a special delight, but working on the monster manual is like the delight of delights. And we not only wanted to improve every monster that was returning from the 2014 monster manual, but also add many new critters. And
what is that
combination of things has led to us creating a book that has over 500 stat blocks in it, making this the biggest monster manual D&D, but also add many new.
I think that's Changeling or something like that, or some kind of. No, I think it's called a Doppelganger or a Changeling. I forget what the.
I've never seen one of those before.
Yeah. Critters. And that combination of things has led to us creating a book that has over 500 stat blocks in it, making this the biggest monster manual D&D has ever had. And we have looked at every creature type and looked for ways to expand the number of creatures in that type. We've looked at high challenge ratings and seen how can we make those creatures more dangerous. And we've looked at all the creatures before that to see are there ways that we can make them more fun, add new surprises, make how they function smoother than they were before, and a whole lot more.
Was there something that stood out that you were really proud of, or that was really exciting to like revisit and revamp?
Well, for me, one of the most exciting opportunities for the book is to really make this feel like a Dungeons & Dragons monster manual. And that's going to sound a little weird because there's been numerous Dungeons & Dragons monster manuals, but this is a book that's really rooted in showing you how these monsters exist in the worlds of Dungeons & Dragons. So as much as we've put so much effort into the reorganization, the new rules, streamlining and revising some of the narrative text, but right down to the art, you're going to open up this book and you're going to see the worlds of D&D and the monsters of D&D in those settings doing what they do. I don't think that there's a single monster in this book that's just, here's a critter floating in white space. Yeah. They're all in these worlds doing the things that make them exciting. We don't want to show you just here in the abstract as a creature. I want to show you the monster, the like rust monster, actually doing what it does, actually dissolving weapons and armor. What does that look like? So you can take a look at this and you can see the adventures that you can then have unfold at your table.
Yeah, none of these monsters are without context. And like you said, in every edition previous, the monsters were static. This was like, here's a picture, like almost like a wanted poster of the monster. And this is the monster in action, which is very helpful for new and old Dungeon Masters.
I doubt they did a better job.
Because we wanted the art itself to inspire DMs, to get them thinking about how they could use these monsters in their stories. I think the monsters themselves are inspiring. I mean, I know going back to the first edition monster manual, those illustrations inspired my childhood imagination and continue to inspire me to this day. But we wanted to bring more so that, that rust monster, you actually see it rusting something. The beholder, you see it using its eye rays and seeing the dread consequences of those rays' use. You see in many cases like the awesome scale of the ancient dragons. You see when it comes to some of the new titanic creatures, just how gigantic they are. I think the Tarask image that we have in this book, better than ever before, shows just how gigantic and terrifying that monster is. And then to accompany every monster its description begins with the section that tells you the environment where you're most likely to meet the monster, to help DMs as they are sort of thinking about the map of their campaign and where they might want to place different monsters. They can see right away, oh, I'm most likely to have a creature like this appear in a forest, for instance. We also now have default treasure for all of the monsters in the book, or we tell you this monster just doesn't have loot. And that too is there to help DMs not just run the monster in battle or in a diplomatic encounter, but also really ground the monster even more in their adventures and in their worlds.
That's actually insane. I love that they added loot to each monster, because I'm always wondering, like, well, what type of loot would this thing have on it, you know?
Yeah, they brought that back. That was always there in the earlier books. They would tell you what table of loot to go to. But
Was there a particular monster that stood out, or a couple of monsters that just can
But
easily come to mind, where you're like,
they
"Let's be able to
removed
enhance
it.
this.
I
This is gonna
think
be a far
I don't know
more,
if they did it in
dramatic,
4E or in
combative experience running
5E,
this
or if it was
It's
even
hard to
back in
pick
30
any
that
one or
they
any
removed it.
because there are
But
improvements across
I have
the board.
third
But I
edition's the
think
only one that I
great
have no idea
example
about.
family of monsters are the ancient dragons. I mentioned that we made sure in the art that the ancient dragons really show off how majestic and terrifying they can be, or protective in the case of the metallic dragons. But also in the stat blocks, people are going to find that not only are these dragons way more resilient than they ever were before with the number of hit points they have,
great.
but also these dragons are going to bring hurt more than they ever did before, and
I
also
thought you
have
liked
more
hit
tactical
points.
texture than they had before. We took a number of gameplay elements that used to exist outside
mean-
the stat block in things like
But a
lair
dragon's
actions,
already
and
tough to
moved
kill.
those
How
into
much
the stat block
more
itself
tough is
to
it?
not only make the DM's life easier by
crazy.
having everything they need to know on running the creature right in front of them in the stat block, but also this was a chance for us to bring
guess
in
they had to
new
do
abilities.
something
So for example,
to
we in the
make
past
it
have
a
said ancient
dragon book
dragons
coming out later
typically
worth
are
it.
spellcasters.
Well,
but that
the thing
existed
is
as
that
an
so at
option,
the
often a
level
sidebar in the
a
2014
party would be fighting a dragon normally, right? The party typically kills it pretty quickly. So that I think that's why they're increasing the hit points because
Yeah.
Because at the appropriate level that you're supposed to be able to fight dragons, right? Your party is just going to destroy it.
So
right?
on that same note,
which is why like Dungeon Coach, I know he ran because he knew this, like his players put out a lot of damage. So one of his like climaxes of his campaign, I forget the exact circumstances, but it was a lich riding a Draco lich, and each of them had like 1,000 hit points.
Jeez.
And the party still won.
Wow.
Right. So at high level, you can't really so they're just basically trying to cushion it.
Yeah. Well, that
Right,
makes
so
me
last-
wonder if they're doing the same thing to other things. Like, we know, at least what we've said before on the podcast, that there's like some Apex forms, right, or something of different.
Yeah, I
monsters.
think that's.
So I wonder
that's,
if
you told me that. I don't know where did you hear about that?
Oh gosh, I can't remember where I heard about that. Maybe it was like one of these other videos. I thought they mentioned Apex forms.
Well,
But,
they might have.
but yeah, I wonder if they're like, where I'm going with this is like, I wonder if they're gonna do the same thing. They did it to dragons, like would they do it with like Tarask and like I don't know,
They probably did.
some kind of
I
cracking
honestly think
creatures.
The Tarask needs to, and I don't know if they're gonna. Like the thing about gargantuan creatures is they need to feel like they're bigger, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be interacting with a Tarask on a battlefield, right? You should be interacting with his foot.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that's how big it is.
Yeah.
Right? 4 dudes don't just show up next to Godzilla and suddenly suddenly Godzilla's focus is on those 4 people, right? Godzilla's just going to keep walking, right? Unless they
they're just going
that's
to
my-
be
that's
puny
my
little
problem
ants
with-
in the path of.
That's my problem with how D&D like treats gargantuan creatures. Is like you get like maybe even just create another size category above gargantuan, right? To where like you can have creatures that big.
Yep.
But in the pictures, it depicts the like Tarask and stuff like that as big as Godzilla. You know.
Yeah. So hopefully it is. Or at least
Yeah,
they change
hopefully-
some
hopefully
aspects that make it sound like it's bigger or something, you know?
Yeah, I doubt it, but they hopefully they do something about that.
Yeah, let's see.
monster manual.
'Cause it should
This
be-
time you're going to see
Yeah.
that, with the exception of, I think, the ancient white dragon.
And
who's
for those not
just
aware,
maybe
yes,
starting
we
to
are
learn what a
listening on
spell is.
1.5 speed.
Maybe not a few thousand years.
Just kind of quicken things
the
up a
rest of
little
the
bit
ancient
because
dragons,
they
they're
talk
now
really slow.
spellcasters. And so in addition to their usual physical menace, with their claws and their tail and their great maws and their breath weapons, they also now have spells they're casting. And that
Ooh.
change is going to transform how those creatures feel in battle. There's also an under the hood thing that
I don't
we
know
did,
how I
not
feel
only
about
with
that.
the ancient dragons, but
Dragons
with
being
all of the
spellcasters?
legendary creatures.
Yeah, but like
and that is as we reach
the thing is how much of a spellcaster is it? Is it like a full blown spellcaster? Like it
depends.
casts multiple
Like,
spells?
I always thought it would be cool, like to give dragons like an alternate breath weapon where it's a spell effect, right?
Yeah.
And they and put that on a recharge, just like their regular breath weapon.
Yeah, see that makes sense. But
I think-
like
I think
them
that would be
having
cool,
spell
given-
slots seems a little weird.
Yeah, like spell effects that they can do
Yeah.
with their breath. And I think that would be cool, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Tuned all of our legendary creatures. We ensured that no matter what pathway the DM takes through that monster using the legendary actions, the monster is going to stay on CR. This is significant because a decade ago, the way we calculated CR was focused on if the DM chooses the most powerful option every round, here is the monster's CR.
Like,
well, many of us as DMs found that
another thing that I just thought of. It's like so critical, like on that same point that I was making before, that they don't feel big enough. Critical Role, or like in the first series,
The first campaign.
I feel like they got it right, like the Colossus that they were on top of at the climax, right?
Oh yeah, that thing was so cool.
That was the battlefield, right? You're fighting on the creature, like it's so big that you're not even registering it as a creature.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're
like
essentially a microorganism to that thing.
Like, I think that should be another size category, maybe like Colossal or Titanic or something like that. That should be another size category, right?
Planetary.
Yeah, but I mean, that giant in that sort of situation was like the battlefield. It didn't even register as a creature in the combat.
Yeah, and like in other shows and campaigns and stuff we've listened to, like people use dead titans or dead this and that to make entire settings out of. So like that should definitely be a different category.
Deadly option every round, but then that also often led to a monster feeling weaker than it should. We have now changed our entire methodology so that when the monster, it says it's CR, like for instance for a legendary creature, no matter which sequence of legendary actions you pick, that monster is still going to be on CR, which is going to actually have a cumulative effect of making these monsters seem more terrifying.
Yeah, I think CR will.
How do they do that? Like that makes.
I think CR will be better balanced now that they have more experience with it.
Yeah, but like, how do you? I guess it's just how you template the abilities and like how powerful they are. But like, how do you know for sure that's not going to be one ability's not going to stand out more than the other? Like it's kind of.
Well, I mean, they probably play tested it, but we'll have we really don't know, and like nobody's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one guy whose homework it was to do that probably.
It just seems like a big thing to state in a video.
Yeah,
like. They're actually willing to go and say, "Hey, this is actually going to be the same CR no matter what abilities you use."
I do think CR will be more reasonable. It'll be better.
Yeah.
In general. Well,
and now that it's made clear, it's like you're purchasing, an encounter out of these, experience you have.
Yeah.
Like it's clear now. People might understand and work with it more.
Will not be those drop-offs that people had before of, well, I chose this option and wow, that monster felt way weaker, whereas the other DM never chose that option, they chose the other one and the monster felt much stronger. We've made it so that it is much easier for the DM to find their way through the stat block of an ancient dragon or the blob of annihilation or the colossus or one of the other high CR creatures in this book and keep that monster terrifying in a way that is appropriate for its challenge rating.
This also isn't just under the hood. Like this is something that we discussed with the new introduction to the book. We lay this out and we present to DMs, hey, if you see these abilities, prioritize them. These are things you should be focused on. This is things you can do at your table to make sure that these monsters are living up to the incredible threats they can present.
Yeah, because the introduction has a section that the 2014 Monster Manual didn't have, which is advice on running a monster.
Yes.
And it walks you through those pieces of like if you're as a DM you're stumped on what the monster should do. We put in always look for the following abilities and prioritize using them if your goal is bringing the hurt. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, in some scenarios the monsters are maybe a potential friend, and so DMs still have the freedom to have a monster be far less threatening. But we also wanted to make it far easier for a DM to bring the thrills and the terror when that's appropriate for their campaign.
It's hard to choose from this much art because it's all new art. It's weird the monsters I probably didn't gravitate towards before, but now I do. Like the Marrow is terrifying. That art is just horrific. That is the scariest merman I've ever seen. I know it's not merman, but no, there's just a lot of examples of monsters maybe I wasn't inspired to use, where the art is now inspiring me.
I would love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
I mean, a lot of it feels like someone took a photo in the middle of the movie scene.
Yes, and that's very intentional. Like throughout the course of ordering art for the Monster Manual, we wanted to make sure that you were getting experiences that you can only get from Dungeons & Dragons. So many of the monsters that are in the Monster Manual come from mythology. You've seen them at this point, since fantasy media is so pervasive, you've seen these monsters before. We're not surprising you with, oh, and this monster's called an ogre. Yeah. Like, you've got ogres. But let's see something now with, like, what does the monster actually do? And what does it do that's exciting in a D&D context?
So, I want to state this, like, regardless of what art is in this book, I think they've already hit it out of the park with art in really all of the books. Like, the art this time around is much, much better, I think. Don't you think?
Well, the only book that I've seen is the DMG. It had some cool art. I don't know if it's any cooler.
And it seems like they're continuing with the theme from the DMG is like, at least art is explaining more things or showing more things, you know? Like, like this picture we have paused on right now, like you can detail a scene better with this picture than you can of a simple, you know, this creature standing in a random place, you know, looking not menacing. Like this, doing this is just like exactly where I hoped D&D would go with in terms of art.
So for example, I'm thinking of a piece like The Spectre, where the Spectre is this pretty basic spooky ghost monster. There's lots of spooky ghost monsters, but the Spectre has a specific vulnerability where it's repelled by sunlight. And in that piece of art, you can see that the cleric in the image is surrounded by the sun, like a sunlight spell, that the Spectre isn't able to encroach on them. There's dozens of instances like this, even with something like the Mimic, where the Mimic, we've seen the Mimic be a treasure chest dozens of times, even outside of D&D and in other media. We wanted to present, here's all the things that mimics could be, and show a room that an adventurer is stumbling into where, geez, like everything in that room is a mimic. You can see like the little faces on it. And those are just a few instances.
I liked how Delicious in Dungeon treated mimics.
Not just experiences that you can only get with D&D.
If you haven't seen that show,
100%
watch it on Netflix. It's
like,
worth it.
I've never thought of a mimic maybe being a throne or being this other type of treasure. And now you can use that content as a springboard to your own adventures.
One of the things I love on the Mimic page and in so many of the other parts of the book is where you added those tables that are there to inspire the DM to think of, like for the Mimic, it's a list of tables or lists. It's a list of, here are things the Mimic could be, or so many other monsters where it's like, here are things that might motivate this monster, or the different forms that another monster could take. You put in so many, like what I think of as DM friends throughout the book.
It's something that we talk about as early as the introduction, that every D&D monster is an adventure, or is really a springboard to hundreds of adventure. Just the concept of a room with a beholder in it. That is a very different adventure from, and this is a room with a goblin in it. And as soon as you see these monsters and you start imagining, all right, what sort of environment is a beholder in? What is it doing? What's its philosophies? What's its motivations? And that's so different from these other critters. We wanted to really express that not just in the stat blocks, not just in the art, but in the narrative text with, here's an exploration of what it could do. But you'll see throughout the book that it's filled with, like Jeremy mentioned, lists of here's things that Mimic could turn into, or for like a group of monsters like the Performers, where you get several performer stat blocks, here's the different types of performers that you might encounter. Just things to show some of that versatility and to express to DM, this monster isn't
that's
one
probably
monster. This monster
that seems like a waste of paper.
Yeah, they might have just had some filler ideas. They're like, we'll go with that.
It seems like it's filler
of adventures, and really anything that you can imagine. So they're all springboards to encourage that sort of imagination, that sort of world building, and doing the things with the monsters that a DM wants to do at their table, not just locking it into one thing that's our version.
And that speaks so much to how people actually use the Monster Manual. Is you flip through it and you think of an adventure. You start to daydream. It's a lot of daydreaming fodder when you're flipping through the book, and so you're just giving more tools for that.
And in many cases, we wanted to back off on some of the like deep lore elements.
Right.
We don't.
Yeah, what they just said. You see what I mean? Like that's 100% what I do. Is I go flip through the book and like look at the pictures, and then I start detailing out further, my adventure based on what I like in terms of art.
feel like they need to have taken another class or that they've missed something in learning about this monsters. We wanted to express, here's the basic overview, and in many cases, here's something that they focus on, here's how to use them tactically, here's something interesting they can do in battle, but then these are also interesting elements that are unique to them that you might be able to express in a spectrum of different ways. I'm thinking of the animated objects, for example. Also includes a table of just why is this object animated? And then it's like, maybe it's Fey trickery that did it. Maybe a wizard created it. Maybe the things are possessed or something. Every one of those possibilities, that's a completely different story. The story that is the sword is possessed and the sword is being manipulated by a mischievous sprite, completely different adventures.
And you mentioned before, we've got a series of humanoids. We've always, wanted to be able to well, what are the stats of a bandit? What are the stats of a standard druid? And now we have that in this.
And we had the NPC appendix in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and so those NPCs are returning. But yeah, we wanted to have them return with many companions, and so we added performers, we've added pirates, we've added more. In even the existing groups, we've added more options. So now there are more cultist variants. There are more priest variants.
Speaking of pirate,
and so on and so forth.
We should probably give an update on when-ish do you think that's gonna.
Yeah, so the pirate that we talked about last time.
Yeah, we talked about it last time, updating it.
Yeah, the release I'm planning on is this weekend. So as of release, it's
close to
the 10th of January is when you'll be seeing this when this episode releases. So around the 10th of January, maybe a day after,
maybe a little later.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get that this week.
Yeah, I just figured this, he mentioned pirates, I just remembered that.
Yeah.
Because we know how much DMs use that NPC section. I mean, heck, I as a DM use the NPC section of the 2014 Monster Manual more than any other part of that book. So even we, just as dungeon masters, want
not the 10th when it comes out. It'll be the 11th when it comes out.
People are going to get to see a whole bunch of new NPC stat blocks. They're going to get to see the old ones enhanced in a variety of ways, and all of these will just give the DM even more pre-built material to incorporate into adventures and campaigns of their own creation.
So you talked about mechanics for high level. Were there some instances at lower level monsters and mid-level monsters that really stuck out to you?
One of our goals throughout has been, let's make everything run smoother as much as we can, make sure the numbers are the best they can be to deliver the play experience people expect for each particular monster, and also see where
I'm not sure what those ones are.
Some new surprises. So you're going to see, particularly at very low CR, often the main change will be a number got adjusted slightly, or there's a new ability that replaces an old ability. But it's as you go up in CR, because it tends to be that as you go up in CR, the monsters end up having more moving parts. That's where you will see more and more new things. Here's one example. When you get to the vampire section, and Wes and I are both vampire fans, and so
we all are.
Yes, I think it's a D&D thing, given that the Curse of Strahd is
everyone in this video is wearing black.
Yes, we're all wearing black. So not only are there more vampires than before. That's many of our monster families have expanded, and so we not only have a new lower CR option in the vampire section, but then we also have a new higher CR option.
See, that's what I was talking about. There's the Apex forms.
So we have, I think, 3 brand new vampires, but then the 2 we had before, the vampire spawn and the vampire itself, have also been enhanced. And people will probably first experience this facing the vampire spawn, because the vampire spawn in our adventures is typically the type of vampire people experience earliest in their adventuring careers, and usually experience them in larger numbers than, say, a full-fledged vampire. And what people will see right away is some familiar things and how a vampire spawn works. And I loved having this experience recently at 2 different conventions where I ran the new vampire spawn. And the vampire spawn, as the characters were fighting, suddenly just slipped away out of melee without provoking opportunity attacks, and while still having the whole rest of their turn. And the players at my tables who fought vampire spawn over the last 10 years in 5th edition were like, wait, what did it just do? And that is one of the new abilities that the vampire spawn have, and you will see a variant of it in most of the vampires. And that was part of us really wanting to enhance the fact that vampires are extremely difficult to pin down. They are, they have this deathless agility. Part of their whole shtick of what makes them terrifying is they're very difficult to defeat. And so we wanted to take this element and add it into the vampires. They don't all do it the same way. The vampire spawn might just be able to disengage easily, but one of the other newer vampires is able to actually fly around in the middle of battle without turning into a bat to do so. And so if people thought vampires were tricksy before, now they're even more tricksy. And another example of a family of monsters that we not only expanded, but that now has some new things to experience in it, is goblins. Goblins, one of the most used monster families. We have added a new spellcasting option. It's actually a return from 4th edition. In 4th edition, we had, it was one of my favorite monsters in 4th edition, oddly, which is the Goblin Hexer. And so we brought the Goblin Hexer in because we wanted in this collection of goblin stat blocks to have one focused on using tricksy magic. But then we also added a lower CR goblin because we realized sometimes DMs just want goblins in really high volume, and the regular goblin that we have can often serve that role, but we wanted one that was even lower CR, and it's called, appropriately enough, the Goblin Minion, where just truckloads of them can be unleashed into a battle. And then we looked at that whole family, where we had the Goblin Warrior from before, we also had the sort of boss goblin, and we made sure that all of those stat blocks, the ones that we had before as well as the new ones, fit together to actually feel like a group. You're going to see that in the gnolls, and group after group. They work more cohesively as a group, and gnolls are more terrifying than they've ever been before, particularly because we've just embraced now. Gnolls are fiends. These are not just bloodthirsty humanoids. No, they are hopped up on Yinogu blood and are actually fiends. Similarly, the goblins are, rather than being humanoid, are fey.
Right.
And this is something we've been nodding toward in a number of our books in recent years.
Yeah, for a while now,
of the goblin roots in the Feywild, and now we have fully embraced that. Which really connects to yet another thing is people.
Anyways, on goblins, what I just you'll see this when we do play D&D, but goblins, the way I want to run them now, because I want to make them more like the goblins in Diablo 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead of just being their own humanoid race, or in this case Fae, they're corrupted dwarves.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
But that's how I'm running with it, right? They're sort of like how Gith are corrupted elves and stuff stuff like that.
Yeah,
they're just a different version of a dwarf now.
Yeah,
the way I'm gonna run them now.
So how would you run it differently in exactly?
Well, they're not a playable humanoid race.
Oh, okay, right.
I would play them exactly like they are in Diablo 3.
Okay.
They just show up to steal stuff and teleport away.
Yeah.
Into some gem dimension.
Mm-hmm. And if you get lucky, you maybe kill it.
Yeah, you can kill it. Yep. You can still kill them.
Type shifts throughout the book, and we've done that in some cases for mechanical reasons, other cases for narrative reasons, and sometimes for both. I mentioned gnolls are now fiends, goblins are now fey. Some creatures that before might have been monstrosities or humanoids that are now elementals, and that we did sort of early on in the project a vetting of all the creatures' types and made adjustments to make sure that they were really landing in the correct part of the sort of ecologies of the multiverse, not only for what we want to do with them mechanically, but also for future stories.
I'm also really thrilled with how many instances you have of different types of monsters. Like, there's the Revenant, but there's an addition to the Revenant, which is terrifying. The Death Knight. There's the Death Knight, but also there's an even more scary
looks
element
cooler.
to the Death Knight.
Yeah.
I love that expansion. Also, the art feels very stylized specifically to that monster in a way that I haven't seen before. Like, everything undead feels very Ravenloft. It has that gothic horror feel. Like, all the undead have a very signature style now, it feels like.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for each monster, we wanted to make sure that the whole package was providing the experience that we wanted. We didn't want it to be just, all right, and then look, here's a skeleton wearing armor, but we describe it as something that's completely terrifying, and then the rules really present it as this devastating force. We wanted to make sure that everything was really working in unison. So the art, the narrative, the game design for it was all very much considered one package, reinforcing the stories that we wanted to share with the readers and making sure that DMs were going off in a direction that was appropriate for what the best parts of these monsters are. So you mentioned the Death Knight, for example. So yeah, the Death Knight is described as this overwhelming undead commander, and then you see that in the art with the Death Knight actually leading. But in this case, he's not just leading a group of rank and file skeletons. we didn't want to show this high-level undead warlord with some of the lowest CR threats in the game. Instead, we've presented an entirely new stat block called the Death Knight Aspirant, where these are like heralds of the Death Knight. These are champions undeads that are like lieutenants to a Death Knight. Doing a few different things, it creates the potential for a more unified encounter experience, where now you've got a Death Knight with other higher-level minions that it can be presented with, but then it also
that would be cool. If you had like well, I mean, I would incorporate the like a villain system, like in Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, where like if the Death Knight dies, the next one up becomes the Death Knight.
Yeah.
Or the one who harms or kills a player becomes the Death Knight.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Have an entire like villain structure with the undead.
Yeah,
like I'm like the orcs in that game.
Mm-hmm. I really like how they're doing this. Like, so far, it's a win for a book for the Monster Manual. I mean, the first thing you want with a big commander guy is just minions to put in for him to lead. You know, like it's good that they're doing that. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I said except for the DEI stuff. Oh, well,
yeah, we'll get there.
I'm sure they'll mention that.
Of your Death Knight experience at lower levels with the Aspirant.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many monsters where it's like, I'd love to include a Lich in this adventure. We are level 1.
Yeah.
So having some of these additional options, in some cases higher levels, in some cases lower levels, allows you to get more of these iconic D&D monsters more in your game, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, but increasing the utility overall.
Yeah, because you want to feel like, it'd be great to feel like you're thwarting the plans of a Death Knight earlier on, and not just be skeletons. But then you're also making the Death Knight way more scary by having an entourage.
Exactly.
And this has just been part about Death Knight culture in D&D anyways, and like all the way down to Lord Soth, he has his 13 knights, things like that. That's just, you don't often imagine Death Knights by themselves now.
Exactly. There's even an example of one called a Ghast Gravecaller, which is presented as just a new spellcasting ghast. But we even presented in the art with like the Lich, just to suggest like if you want to have either a monster that is appropriate to be used with a Lich to like be its apprentices, or if you want to have that Lich-like experience earlier on, here you've got this lower level undead spellcaster that you can explain that with.
What does it feel to have completed the new core books, all 3?
I'm still internalizing that because we've been working on these books for years, literally multiple years, and to have it done, it's still sinking in, but it's a great feeling. It was wonderful to get to end with the Monster Manual because, again, for me, a monster book is like dessert.
Yeah.
The Monster Manual also, in many ways, is a culmination of things that people saw in the new Player's Handbook and the new Dungeon Master's Guide, because the Monster Manual relies on many of the rules and enhancements in the Player's Handbook. It relies on
like the best
thinking in the
for
Dungeon
last
Master's Guide about making DM's life
not really. Well, I mean,
Monster Manual, and this is all about taking rules elements from the Player's Handbook, mixing it with our
not in that way,
DM's life easier philosophy from the DMG to make this host of monsters that are there to inspire, to be fun at the table, to surprise players, to feature elements of the rules that are new in the new versions of the core books. Like there are more monsters now that make use of the fact that the game has the term bloodied back. So you're going to find monsters that have things triggering within their stat blocks when they're bloodied. You're going to see exhaustion used in ways that it hasn't been used before because the condition was redesigned, and now we can use it in certain ways that we were hesitant to use in the past. And just on and on, you'll see monsters. Even now, some of our spellcasting monsters able to cast some of the new spells in the 2024 Player's Handbook, because when we designed those new spells in the Player's Handbook, they weren't just for our player characters. We also had one of our eyes on the Monster Manual, knowing some of our monsters are going to want to be able to cast these spells. And so all of it, you're going to see that the Monster Manual truly is the culmination of the core book revision that we've done, in part to simply celebrate 50 years of D&D.
See, a monster like this makes sense as a spellcaster. But I still keep thinking about the dragon. I don't think a dragon is a spellcaster. I mean, it looks like some sort of like warlock thing.
Minotaur?
Yeah. Maybe it's a minotaur.
It's got a lot of extra horns for a minotaur, if it is one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know that older dragons, like adults and ancients, can transform into humanoid form.
Yeah, maybe it's just because it's
so
new,
they can cast
like something that's not really been part of it. Really, it just feels off. Like dragons already are innately powerful. Like I could go with them having like some sort of like aura or debuff effect, you know, like, but like actual spells that they just cast is kind of weird in my mind.
And now you get to see how all three of these books work in unison now.
Yes.
Absolutely. You're also going to see many of the innovations that were originally presented in the player's handbook really take form here, fulfilling on the promise of things like some of the new stat block formats that we presented at the end of the player's handbook, with like those usable creatures like, just the imps and a lot of the animal companions back there. Well, now you're going to see a whole book where the stat blocks are so much more inviting, so much more usable. The organization is so much crisper. We've spent a lot of times really making sure that wordings are tight and concise, that the gameplay experience is really at the forefront of so much of our design to make sure that a DM can look at these stat blocks, make a choice or two, and run an interesting encounter. It's all been designed with playability being front of mind, and we want to make sure that like the experience of using the monsters of this book is easy, inviting, and exciting.
And because in some ways our team has a philosophy of anything worth doing is worth overdoing, we didn't just bring all of that to what was already there, but we added over 80 more monsters.
Is that all?
Okay, so there's the actual change, is 80 more monsters in the book, as opposed to however many there were before. 500 minus 80, so 420.
It was funny toward the end. I was even joking a few times because it's not nothing adding over 80 monsters to the monster manual. I kept joking, like, who decided to do this? It's my fault. Because we not only wanted to expand the various monster families, but also bring people more high CR threats and also flesh out some of the creature types like you mentioned, Todd. So I think one of the reasons that and it's gratifying to hear you say that earlier, that you're like, it feels like all the types are fleshed out more. That was a very conscious effort on our part, that we wanted to feel like each creature type really sort of earns its place in the book. Now, there's still some creature types that have way more monsters than others.
Right.
That's just how, there will always be more fiends than plants, you know, at least in the monster manual. But we wanted to make sure that in each of these types, the DM felt like there were more toys to play with, and more toys to play with at a variety of levels of play. And we've talked before in some videos about the number of new high CR threats in this book.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm very much in love with, because now I also feel, as a dungeon master, you've given me the stat blocks for a big bad.
Yes.
Like my end of campaign.
I don't know if they're going to talk about the
Tarrasque
Tarrasque.
or the Blob of Annihilation, this doomsday level threat.
I don't know.
feel like I have the stat blocks for that now, for the first time.
And that was our goal.
They mentioned it, didn't they?
To be able to look through the
Yeah,
book
they mentioned it
essentially
briefly,
have a
and then
menu
they
of
haven't
options
gotten anywhere
for
near it.
what is the big bad at the end of this campaign. Before you had some great options in like the dragon category,
Yeah.
the undead category, and the fiend category. That was kind of it. And so now we made sure that you have an option in, heck, even the construct category,
Yeah.
in the celestial category, in the ooze category, in the fey category, and so on and so forth. And part of it also, just from a world building standpoint, we wanted the Tarrasque to have some fighting buddies, because we like imagined, these like monster mashups, and we just thought there can't just be one kaiju. There's got to be more, and so there are definitely more now.
And the Tarrasque is still absolutely the king of the ring. Like, it's the highest CR critter in there. But like, setting up an entire campaign where the DM has in the back of their head is like, but the last adventure is the cultists are going to unleash this ancient colossus, and it's going to go stamping around with like the power of like an ancient god destroying things. That's a very different story than you could really set up easily with some of the older monster manuals. So it's exciting that these endgame adventures, the possibilities have really expanded.
And we did make sure that, the Tarrasque up there at the top, even the Tarrasque has new surprises.
Yes.
So anyone who, whether they played their way to 20th level and faced the Tarrasque, or as many of us have done, just have a 20th level one shot just to fight a Tarrasque, people who fought it before are going to be surprised. So some of the old tactics of, we just stay here at far range and pink, at it, and it can't do anything back at us.
Try it.
Yeah, try it. Yeah, try it and find out.
No, that works great. You should do it.
The Tarrasque has a whole new kit of abilities that it did not have before. Partly, not only to keep long-time players on their toes, which was something that was on our minds throughout this book. We wanted people who've even been playing since the 2014 books came out till now. We want them to face surprises in this book, and also just to keep things fresh, so that even if it's a creature you fought 20 times in the last 10 years, in many cases you're going to find something new.
A bee?
That's going to require some new
There's a
tactical
big bee.
thinking to get around what the monster is doing. And the Tarrasque is just one great banner example of that, because, again,
Or
the people who
wasp,
thought they
I
could just
think
hang
is
at
the
far
correct
range and take it out again.
say it.
Try it and find out.
I actually really appreciate small little
Yeah.
things. Like you mentioned the environments right off the top with these monsters, but you also kind of give descriptive language, almost in like a hashtag way for me.
There, at the right after the names of each one of the monsters, we now have a little tagline. Just just a little bit that's like the subtitle, just like what's the shtick with this monster? Like, okay, a Nikoloth. What? So, like, yes, you can go down and you can read about it, and it's going to tell you, but at a glance, you can see just a little flavorful 2 or 3 words that's just like you said, like a little hashtag or a little quick summary. I'm thinking of the skeletons, for example.
We don't mean literally there's hashtags.
Exactly.
No, I think of it as it is the TLDR.
Exactly.
This is the vibe.
Here's the gist, exactly. I mean, I think for skeletons, it's like ossified evil. I mean, it's just this little, like, something that is both like, oh, okay, it's like this like evil skeleton monster. I mean, if you don't know what a skeleton is, you can also check the dictionary, but there's other monsters that are definitely require a little bit extra, and in many cases, the intent is to summarize, but also
heard it here
to
first.
give you
The dictionary
a
is the new
just
monster
to
manual.
put you in the right headspace for everything you read after that. It's like a title and a subtitle. So if you're going through, you can just run through real quick, and many of these monsters, their names are just made up words, but then you get that little bit right afterwards where if you've never encountered it before, oh, it's that. Oh, this is a monster about puzzles. Oh, this is an Underdark ambusher. Oh, this is a giant of the skies, things like that. And then you can read on if you want, or if that's not what's capturing your imagination, just turn the page.
And this is a wonderful example of some of the fruits that ripened because of us working on all 3 books as essentially one giant book. Because this tagline approach is also in the player's handbook.
Those alternate
Classes
covers
have
are
it,
kind
every
of cool.
subclass has it, and just as there, it's so that we can draw people in quickly, give you a taste, so that if you're especially a time-strapped dungeon master, you can quickly orient yourself as you're going through the monster manual and figure out, is this a monster maybe I'm going to add to tonight's game, or in the adventure I'm dreaming about that they might get to 6 months from now. So much of this is about getting people to the information in a variety of ways. The book also has at the start an alphabetical list of every single stat block in the book, so that you can find the stat blocks quickly, but then it also has at the back of the book multiple monster lists that give the DM multiple ways to essentially sort. You can look for monsters by CR, you can look for monsters by creature type, you can look for monsters by environment, you can look for monsters by subgroup. So let's say, oh, I know fiends, but I just want to know what all the demons are. We've got you covered. We have a demon list. You want to know what all the devils are. Go to the devil list. And so there's also a lot more infrastructure in this monster manual than in the 2014 one to help DMs prepare and design adventures.
Something that we haven't mentioned is the organization of this book is significantly different than the 2014 Monster Manual. If you look up Pit Fiend, you will not find it under D. You will find it under P for Pit Fiend.
Yeah.
So all of these choices were really meant to aid folks who maybe don't have years and years of D&D experience knowing, Pit Fiend, that's a devil, I should go to the Ds and look for that. Rather, this is meant to really make sure that folks, whether they're a first-time player or have been playing for years, they can just go to the book, they can look things up alphabetically, they can find it in a very intuitive way, they can find it in that initial alphabetical listing. They've got multiple options that they can track down this information. And if they still want to do things like, hey, I want my listing of all of the devils, it's important for me to know what those are. Well, they might not all be under Ds anymore, but we still have that information in the book. You can still find that organization. None of that has been lost. We've just presented more options, and hopefully in a way that is prioritizing being as accessible as possible to the widest number of players.
Early on in the process, we joked that we no longer want someone to have to know so much about D&D that to find the gelatinous cube, they have to go to O.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you have to already know a lot about D&D to even think to look under ooze
Now,
to find
why
the
would you want to do that in the first place?
I don't know.
Where it's
Yeah,
not
they
even-
really
There's no O's in their freaking name. Well, there is one, but like,
screwed that up. But it's because of ooze. Ooze is
Yeah.
O, and so the oozes were under O. But I mean, yeah, they really screwed that. If they were gonna do that, they should have done that with every single monster, right? But
Yeah.
they didn't. That's the problem. Like,
Oh.
if you knew that all the types were under the same letter, right? Then that would be easy. But they don't make that they don't make that distinction, right? Some of the oozes are under O, but then you might find a random ooze in another section,
yeah.
right? In the original one. So, I mean, this is better, making it alphabetical.
Yeah, and that whole beginning index thing of all the creatures and by alphabetical is super
That'll
cool.
be nice.
Yeah.
gelatinous cube. And now you can just go to G.
Were there any monsters for the art? It's like, well, this is such an iconic monster. How do we nail this?
Oh, I mean, I think, at least for me, one that probably required the most conversation was the Displacer Beast, where it's just, this is a D&D poster child. It has to hit. It's got such an iconic look to it. It's so D&D, but then it's also a piece of art depicting a monster that has an illusion that is misleading an adventurer, but then also has to be clear to the viewer that this is an illusion. The piece that we've got for it is absolutely incredible. It ended up, we really wanted to show off, like, this is the Displacer Beast, and it is tricking an adventurer into focusing on its illusory copy. So even when you look at the piece, it takes a second glance to really figure out which one of the two Displacer Beasts that you're seeing in the piece is actually the fake. And you can see that the archer in that piece is focusing on a Displacer Beast that looks very convincing, but if you really look at it, you can see these like wispy magical effects that are a telltale sign that it's actually the double. And then behind the adventurer, you can see that the real Displacer Beast is ready to pounce. That was a.
So, I've got a question for you. So we both saw the D&D movie. Which creature between the gelatinous cube and the Displacer Beast did they do better with, you think? This is kind of unrelated to this video, but
I don't know. I liked the way they did the Displacer Beast, having like the illusion be a projection that the thing casts.
Yeah.
Right. But the ooze, they didn't really do much with the ooze. They used it as like a prop to get from one room to the next. Right. So I mean, they could have done more with the ooze, but yeah, I like the Displacer Beast's illusion being a projection.
Yeah, it was a little weird in the movie how it was like coming around a corner and it was projecting that thing like clear back, like kind of how would you project something around a corner like that? But yeah, it was cool to see.
Tricky one. And we
I was
talked about
just
this before,
curious.
like every piece of art feels like a story hook, or like we showed.
But yeah,
the story, and
they
then
sort of
gives it
they didn't
flavor
really use the
in some weird way.
the
Like
gelatinous
every day, I'm
cube,
like, oh, that's
right?
something that happened.
It was just kind of
Every
there, and
dragon
they jumped
got a
through
glow
it.
up in terms of its design.
Yeah, it was a way for
And that was
them to
wormwood.
escape,
Yes, the
essentially.
all of the wormlings, the young
To get from
dragons,
one
the
place to
adults,
another, like
the
you said.
ancients. You can see the dragons,
Yeah,
those sort of
plot
over their
device.
lifespans in the different illustrations. You can see some monsters. Their appearance is very similar to what you saw in 2014, and then in others, it's been reimagined in a variety of ways. Like I think of the Horned Devil. I like the 2014 version. I love the 2024 version. And in many cases, we really wanted to, when we redesigned a monster, wanted to bring out the monster's story and personality better. Also, people are going to see in the art sometimes male or female versions of a creature that they've never seen before. So
Here it is.
For instance, in the Dryad painting, you now see both a male dryad and a female Dryad.
Same for the hag.
Yes,
You add
also
new
hags,
stat blocks
you
just
can
for
now they
another
could be
gender.
aunties or uncles, grannies or grandpies, depending on your storytelling taste. Satyrs, you can see male and female versions. We've also reimagined.
I don't think satyrs
succubus
were
and
ever
the
limited
incubus,
to male or female.
And rather than having sort of
Unless
succubus and incubus just
I'm
indicating the gender of
unless
one
I don't know
monster,
anything
we've
about
instead turned
satyrs,
them
but I
into
don't
two
think they were
different
limited
monsters.
before.
Either
The
of those
thing,
monsters
the point.
But
we
yeah,
were
they
trying
did these two. The incubus and succubus. They transed them, so now the incubus and succubus are both trannies.
yeah.
But
The point
the
we're
other
trying
ones,
to get
like
across,
I just don't. The other ones I just don't understand. Like, why do you need a second stat block for another gender?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
That's
Because
doesn't
it.
seem right.
I mean,
like it's the same creature.
Well, it shouldn't.
You should just
shouldn't
be able to say
matter.
it's a female, or like
Yeah, it shouldn't matter.
yeah.
And they. Yeah, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Enough to make a second stat block for it.
Yeah, especially for a fantasy game, like it's.
And the incubus and succubus look nothing like an incubus and succubus.
Yeah, they're formed
They
out of
completely-
stars.
They completely changed them entirely.
Can appear as male or female, so you'll see on the succubus page there's a male version and a female version, and on the incubus page there's a male version and a female version. And what we decided to do is sort of delve into the folklore for this creature, where the succubus is the one you sort of meet in the material plane, and the incubus is the one who haunts your dreams. And the succubus can turn into an incubus, and the incubus can turn into a succubus. So there are all sorts of new, not only gameplay experiences for people to get to enjoy in their game, but also new story possibilities because of some of the reimagined.
So how do you know which one's which? If it can swap back and forth, from what it sounds like. How do you even know if you're fighting an incubus or a succubus? Kind of weird.
reimagining we've done with creatures, and just the succubus and the incubus are just one of many examples.
And this is another good example. Just like all the undead art, it feels like it's coming out pure, terrifying gothic horror. The devils and the demons are ultra metal this time. Not that they weren't metal before, but like
and that
the
was
bone
very-
devil is terrifying.
And that was intentional.
Yeah, that art style is just aggressive.
Yeah.
Like it's the right tone.
That's something, again, absolutely intentional. Like, we did not want to come to this and be like, well, the expectations for D&D art are this.
Yeah.
Every one of these monsters is a different story. D&D can be so many different stories. We wanted to put that front and center with the spectrum of monsters here, really reflect the spectrum of different stories that you can tell, and that's conveyed by all of the different styles. So you'll see some really menacing stuff in here, some like absolutely metal pieces like you were expecting, but there's also some pieces that are freaking adorable. So yeah, definitely a little bit of something for everyone.
Why is the monster manual so precious? It is. I think Chris Perkins got his start by reading the monster manual. I got my start by reading the monster manual and just daydreaming.
My first D&D book was the first edition monster manual. And now, part of that is it was the first of the AD&D books.
Right.
And it's funny, years ago when we were first planning out the core book revision, because we were also going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary, we also considered having the first book of the three be the monster manual. Now, we decided to save it for last because we knew that the work we were doing on the other two books would inform the monster manual. We also saved it for last because we knew that in the months of the core rulebook revision sort of rolling out, we knew it would be easiest for people to play with the old monster manual using the new Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide. And so it just, for a variety of reasons, meant we should end with the monster manual, even though we were tempted as a nod to first edition to start with it. And it is such a precious book because the monster manual, like the Player's Handbook, touches almost every session of D&D play. Because just as players are using character abilities and spells and equipment from the Player's Handbook every single session of play, the Dungeon Master is using creatures from the Monster Manual in almost every single session of play, except for cases where they're using monsters of their own creation or monsters from another book, like Monsters of the Multiverse. But the Monster Manual is sort of always there in the background, because even when a stat block from that book might not be in your current session, there is a good chance the Dungeon Master has been inspired by something they saw in the Monster Manual. And it has always had this special place in the game. And you talked about it earlier, Todd, of it's not just a game book, it's an inspiration book. That sometimes one monster's entry in that book will inspire an entire campaign. A DM will look at the description, perhaps of the new Empyrean, and decide they're going to create an entire culture in their world about these god children, and have a campaign that is all about allying with one of these divine children in a war against another. And that's just one monster out of over 500. And so you could almost think of this book as the book of over 500 campaigns, because you could base a campaign on almost every single creature that you find in this great tome.
There's also an aspirational element for just players. I figured out the type of characters I wanted to play, partially because you are so often defined by the enemies you fight in D&D in some way. And so you daydream, you think about like, if I'm going to fight an Artag one day. And I don't think there's anything that's so informative about what D&D is than flipping through this book.
It also shows you your character's potential friends.
Yeah.
Because there are...
Not everything has to be a fight.
Yes. Well, but also because there are so many benevolent creatures, and there are actually even more of them in this Monster Manual than before. Because again, looking at how DMs have used the 2014 Monster Manual, we know how often DMs go to the Monster Manual for helpful NPCs, for the monster that maybe is meant to be that kind of fake out where, the DM knows the players are going to think it's a threat, but then discover this monster is actually working on their behalf. And so there, I think, are going to be even more fun surprises also from a narrative standpoint because of people meeting creatures now where maybe like, I'm not sure what this creature is up to. They meet one of the new sphinxes and we'll have to figure out, well, like, what is this sphinx even about? And, what is this new kind of fiend about? What is this new kind of vampire about? And I look forward to now years of people telling whole new stories using the new monsters in this book, as well as the hundreds of returning monsters that have been enhanced for years more of play.
Thank you so much for watching this video. We will have a ton more videos all about the different monsters.
All right,
there's that.
Yeah, that's the Monster Manual. So Tyler, hearing all of that stuff, has you changed your mind? Are you gonna get this book?
No.
Okay.
It's like I said, I have way too many. I have way too many monster manuals, anyways, and it's not really adding anything new, right? I mean, if I want to, plenty of the monster manuals that I already currently have give you ways to create more monsters. So like you already have almost an infinite number of monsters.
Yeah.
So I just don't need any more. especially more of the same, just like slightly altered, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well,
Now we're gonna go to the Artificer, right?
yep, the Artificer. So you have it up,
Yeah.
right?
Go through it. Yeah. Do you
Yeah, I'll bring it up real quick.
do you have it up too? Okie
Okay,
dokie.
we are going to look at the Artificer now.
Yeah, we're gonna go through it for the first time. Neither of us
Yep.
have looked at it yet.
All right, so where do you want to start?
Okay, let's just start at the beginning. Where is the... Okay, so at level 1, magical tinkering, spellcasting. Okay. Do you see where it details out what magical tinkering? Oh, there
right
it is.
here.
Okay, there it is. Yep, page 2.
Now allows the Artificer to craft low-cost items quickly.
All right, and then spellcasting allows him to change a cantrip. That's...
Oh, so you can just choose from this list and just create stuff. That's cool. Hey, I've created a rope. We needed a rope right now. As a magic action, you can do it.
Okay, let's see. Turn magic items into spell slots.
Yep,
Um,
that's cool.
okay.
So is that it for like
So-
creating stuff at early levels? Is it just like this list?
Well, I mean, if you read the ability, let's see what it says. So, yeah, you can create one of those items within 5 feet of yourself. You can use the feature a number of times. Yeah, so you can just do that a certain amount of times a day. And then spellcasting. So you get that and that at level 1.
Okay.
And then replicate magic item. Which is new as far as I can tell. I don't see it on the original.
You gain this feature, you choose 4 plans to learn, so you choose plans?
Yeah, you learn plans for items, and then you can create them based on the plans.
That's cool. How different is this so far from the older Artificer? Because I'm not familiar
Well,
with it.
I mean, well, neither am I. You know that, but
Yeah.
I have it open. And the first level thing is a little different. Before, with magical tinkering, you could create like a small, like, temporary magic item, basically, with just a like cantrip like effect, so like a small effect, right? Like I'll read off some. The object sheds light in a 5-foot radius. Whenever the object is tapped, the object emits a recorded message. You know, it does multiple things, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, before that's what it did. Now they're making it so you can just create items with it.
Yeah, I forgot they include these design
Non-magical
notes,
items.
so we can...
Replicate magic item
stuff.
is new, as
Yep.
far as I know.
Infuse
And then
item
it
has been
details out all
redesigned
the-
to rename to replicate magic item.
Yeah.
It allows the Artificer to replicate any magic item of a quality of rarity in any type. Or in item
Right.
type.
Right tool for the job. Is that new? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, let's see.
Ooh, subclasses. So we've got the
You want to go
alchemist,
through the subclasses?
yeah, alchemist, armorer, artillerist, and battlesmith. So
So
I
the
take it-
subclasses are the same,
okay.
but we'll see if they change the features in them. do you want to go through the subclasses now, or do you want to go through the rest of the class?
Yeah, let's do the subclasses, and then we'll go through the
Okay.
rest of the class. Let's see.
Okay, so Alchemist is first.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, and they do give design notes on the updates for the subclasses, so we don't have to look.
Yeah. So
Okay.
replace Blight with Vitriolic Sphere. I don't know what Vitriolic Sphere is, but I
it's a
imagine
spell.
that sounds cooler. Tool proficiency now allows the Artificer to craft potions faster. That's sweet. Experimental
That's
elixir
nice.
now produces more elixirs. The healing of the healing elixir is increased, and the 6th row of the table now lets you choose an elixir's effect. Oh, hey, I'm down for that. The 6th row of the table now allows you to choose an elixir's effect. This
The experimental elixir table.
Oh, this.
Page 7, yeah.
By choosing one of the other rows in this table.
Yeah, so if you
Okay.
roll a 6 on your experimental elixir, you can choose.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks like the Alchemist just got a lot of buffs. I don't know if the Blight change is necessarily a buff. I'm not sure.
You can cast the ability to. You gain the
Yeah.
ability to cast Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron. That's cool. New spell.
Well, I mean, it's new as of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Yeah. But I mean, the last
so
time
it's
they
not- so
touched
it's-
the Artificer was before that. I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
They printed the Artificer in that for the second time.
And then that's it for the Alchemist.
Now the armor is. I heard the armor got another type of armor now.
So the Tools of Trade now allows
Dreadnought.
Artificer to
Dreadnought.
craft armor
That's
faster.
new.
And new armor option Dreadnought. And the Guardian option
Yeah.
defensive field now relies on you being bloodied rather than having limited uses.
Yeah, Dreadnought's new.
Hey, that's actually a good change. Instead of having limited uses, you just have to meet a certain threshold. I like that. That's one thing in D&D that I've struggled with, is like how limited some things are. I know it's for the sake of balance and all this other stuff, but like some things are you should be able to use more than once per day, you know? Like that seems to be a thing they like to push, is once a day or you know, once per long rest or something like that. Let's see. Armor modifications has been replaced by a new feature, armor replication. And then perfected armor now increases the damage of your thunder gauntlets and lightning launchers. Interesting. So you become a juggernaut in battle as a dreadnought. That's cool. So is this like a power suit or something?
Yeah.
Like a Hulkbuster armor type of thing? Or something?
Yeah, it's a suit.
Oh, cool.
Most of the types of armor in the armor are suits,
Oh, sweet.
right? With various powers.
This actually sounds pretty fun. Play the dreadnought.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got the artillerist.
Artillerist.
Now allows Artificer to craft magic wands faster. Each cannon now allows each cannon to use a flamethrower, force ballista, and protector options.
Before you had to pick one, right?
Oh,
Now each now any cannon that you summon can do any of the three.
oh, that's cool. So it's more versatile. Can you use them in any situation now.
Mm-hmm.
Explosive cannon now detonates as a reaction instead of an action, and its damage has been increased. I wonder by how much. Explosive cannon.
Here, I'll pull it up in the old one. We'll see. So, what does the new one say?
So it does 3d10 force damage on a failed save, half as much on a successful one. And then firepower, the cannon's damage rolls increase by 1d8.
Okay, so it's not too different. Before it said, as an action, you can command the cannon to detonate if you're within 60 feet of it. Doing so destroys the cannon, so you can sacrifice the cannon to make it explode, and each creature within 20 feet makes a dex save, taking 3d8 force damage on a failed save.
So they just straight up the dice is all. Up the dice from a d8 to a d10. So that's good.
Oh yeah, they just increased it to a d10. Yeah. Huh.
So what is firepower then?
Well, level 15 feature has double firepower. I don't know. And explosive cannon says firepower too. The damage rolls increase. Your cannon's damage increases. Battlesmith.
Oh, so wait. This is just when it detonates. This is when you fire it. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, wait a second, I'm confused. Okay, now we're
okay. Battlesmith.
It's down.
Not much happened to the Battlesmith.
Wow, 3 things.
2 things. Yep.
You can craft weapons faster and has HP and force and power to rend adjusted.
Huh.
I legit have never played an Artificer. I think I may have created a character that was an Artificer, but I don't think I've ever really played one.
I know John really wants to fix the Artificer, but he doesn't have time. I don't think.
Yeah. Did anything else change in the main class? Let's go back up to that thing. Okay, right here.
All right, let's go through it. Let's see. So they changed Flash of Genius, it says. It's now used in response to an ability check. What does that do? Let's see. You have Flash of Genius in front of you?
Flash of Genius.
Oh, page 4. Okay.
When you are a creature you can see within 30 feet of you fails an ability check or saving throw, you can take a reaction to add a bonus to the roll, potentially causing it to succeed. Bonus equals the intelligence modifier.
Yeah, sort of like guidance. Yeah, it's a flat number.
That's kind of cool. Constant guidance. That's pretty cool.
But yeah, I don't know if how much they.
So why do this and not just give you the guidance cantrip?
I
feel this is
it doesn't because it doesn't do exactly. It doesn't do exactly what the guidance cantrip does.
True.
That's not what it does. It's not like a copy. It's just it has a similar effect.
Yeah.
So they buffed spell storing item. It says it's now been changed to include level 3 spells.
Okay.
Now you can store level 3 spells.
And then Soul of Artifice no longer requires a reaction to cheat death, and it restores you to 20 hit points instead of 1. That is a good change. I really don't like going to 1 hit point because you're still 1 hit from death. It's...
Yeah, I mean,
the benefit now enhances ability checks too.
We'll see when they release this if they change anything else.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be playtesting
it. Me neither. The Artificer is notorious for not being a popular class. So, well, I mean,
yeah,
that might be a little wrong. It might be popular for people
not in our group.
Yeah, might be popular for people who want to play.
It's not popular in our.
Yeah,
it is a pretty popular class.
Yeah, it's just there's problems with it. And as you heard, John wants to make changes. I wonder what he'd change if he were to see this.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think all three of us would change different things because we have very different opinions about magic items.
Mm-hmm. But overall, do you think it's a good change or kind of meh?
I'm kind of indifferent on it because I don't really care about it.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. Like I have many other classes I want to play before I play an Artificer.
No, I think Mage Hand Press did a better job with the Craftsman than this. I think
Mage Hand Press has just like been out doing wizards like hand over fist. Like
yeah, I think I would use that over the Artificer for sure.
Yeah.
And you would have to make pretty minimal changes to that. I mean, there's one or two things that I can think of, right, that I would change to the Craftsman, but definitely not as much as this.
Like their Witch class as well is also an insane class. It's just like super well designed.
Yeah, I really like their class design.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes, and I think that is going to be the end of the episode. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you follow us on YouTube and subscribe and share the podcast in all the ways possible on the RSS feed and on here on YouTube. Go to our website if you're interested in any of our stuff. It's metagamespress.com. And of course, I'm going to keep mentioning we have a Patreon and a Kickstarter coming soon. And you're going to want to be part of Patreon and paying attention to the website and stuff for all of that. So, anything else you can think of to mention, Tyler?
Nope. The review series is going to start soon. We're starting a series where we're going to be reviewing games and reviewing books in general.
Yeah, there's going to be hopefully a lot more videos coming soon. We've just been trying to think of how to get things rolling, and both Tyler and I have plans of some different videos we want to make. So be on the lookout for that. But thanks everyone once again for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.